Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Chalk Talk here in the DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers YouTube channel. Chris Halicke here. We're going to jump into Jonnu Smith. Obviously, the trade happened. They got Jalen Ramsey. We went over some of Ramsey's tape so that we can kind of get an idea of what the Steelers are getting. Now we're going to do the same thing with Jonnu Smith before we dive into any more Aaron Rodgers tape from last year. And, after really watching the tape, I'm not going to say that the Steelers don't need to get a WR2, but they can afford to play out of 12 personnel way more often than they were last year. They can do a number of things with him, and the Dolphins did for sure. This stuff is not going to be foreign territory to Jonnu Smith or Arthur Smith or anything, because Mike McDaniel comes from the Shanahan tree. Arthur Smith is kind of grandfathered into the Shanahan tree. That's not my opinion. Even Aaron Rodgers put it that way. Actually, he just called Arthur Smith like part of the Shanahan tree. So, let's just dive into this. So the Dolphins here are faking a power run to the right side here. You get the guard pulling, and they're faking this power run where you get the tight end and the guard both pulling, where the running back's going to be going over. Meanwhile, Jonnu is kind of doing this leak right here, where when they fake the power, the linebackers step up, and then Jonnu's just going to run right behind it. That's exactly what happens. Jonnu gets open by the time the linebackers see what's happening. It's already too late. Huntley gets the ball out on time. It's right on target. And it's just how quickly he can get out of his stance, get up here. And the thing is that, and actually you can see it better from this angle. Here's Smith right here. He does a really good job of almost acting like he's going to attack a second-level defender. And again, details matter when it comes to trying to execute plays like this. Because at first, this could be I'm going to run a route, which obviously it is, but it almost gives off the impression that, hey, I'm going to go try to block this guy. But no, I'm just going to run right past him. And the linebacker realizes it's too late, and it's a good throw over the top, right on target. Easy pitch and catch for a nice chunk. The Dolphins did this several times. This play in particular several times, especially earlier in the season. But yeah, this is shoot, I don't know if Arthur Smith wants to steal this play or not. Might have to do like his own version of it. Maybe they won't fake power. Maybe they'll fake, a wide zone run to one side or something. But either way, good play here. Jonnu here, right here, winds up being lined up in the slot, and I wanted to kind of show the mismatches that he can create, whether he be, on the end line or in the slot or even lined up out wide. And just, we'll get into the wide stuff, and that's going to be where people are like, do they even really need a WR2? Yes, they still do, because only 18 of his 88 catches last year were from a wide alignment, and even then, some of that is just because he was the number one on his side of the formation. Even though he was really close, he's not lined up like out here a whole bunch. But he can be every now and then. So it's a nice change up to use. It shouldn't be what you try to do all the time. But when you're in 12 personnel and you're running with two tight ends, you can create a lot of mismatches. Because even though it's going to be mostly a linebacker or a safety on a tight end, Jonnu is too athletic and too fast and too strong to be consistently covered by linebackers, and he really shows it here. He's got a linebacker right there on him in what would be deemed press man coverage, and he sheds off of it really quick, and Tua can, he knows Ball begins to separate right there, and Jonnu's just getting out of his break to run this really quick out, that Jonnu's going to get the separation that he needs, and he absolutely does. It's right there. I mean, he's too fast, he's too strong, he's too quick out of his breaks to be consistently covered by linebackers. And so if the Steelers can stay on schedule, and we're talking 1st and 10 to 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 5, and 2nd and 5 to 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, staying on schedule, they can afford to live out of 12 personnel on 1st and 2nd down. Because having Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith on the field all the time is going to create mismatches or favorable matchups in which Jonnu's being covered by a linebacker. Or if you want to put a safety on him, now Pat Freiermuth's being covered by a linebacker. You're not going to have both safeties on tight ends, and so you would like to have either one of those guys covered by a linebacker because it's not a favorable matchup for the defense. It absolutely favors the offense. Next play here, we got Jonnu. He's lined up out wide here. This is what I'm talking about. This can happen every now and then, and he's athletic enough to do this. The Colts here are going to be in a zone coverage, and he kind of just runs this little drift right here, and Huntley hits that. Like, again, this is when you can run drift with your tight end lined up out wide, that unlocks things that you can do with your offense. Again, we're not talking about doing this all the time. We're talking about change-ups that you can throw at the defense. I don't know what the Colts are trying to do here in terms of coverage, but you can't leave Jonnu Smith this wide open. But again, you don't often see tight ends lined up out wide and then go and run routes like this. So when you have a tight end that can do this kind of stuff, you take advantage of it. And that's what the Dolphins did. That's one of the reasons why he had 88 catches last year for nearly 900 yards. Yeah, man, again, it can just, here he is, lined up out wide again. And here he's running a crosser to this side. And the Colts here are actually in man coverage. They're showing cover 3. It looks like they're showing cover 3, but this really ends up being man. You can see this guy runs across whenever Tyreek Hill goes in motion. And they get this taken care of. You got man on, and then you get this guy, it's man. And then I think this corner expected maybe him to get on Smith or something. I don't know if they're trying to banjo this or not, but either way, it becomes really hard to banjo this coverage whenever Smith gets underneath. This is another reason. When I've talked about stacking receivers, this is stacking receivers correctly, by the way. Because when he's kind of running behind, it kind of, especially if you're trying to banjo coverage or this is just straight up, he's covering him. Either way, it kind of creates a natural pick. There's nothing illegal going on here. And he's just running straight across, and nobody's going to be able to pick him up in time. So Huntley's able to get out of the pocket. Now Smith is wide open here. There's no chance 33 is going to get over there in order to cover him in time. Again, when you have a guy who can line up out wide and who can run these crossers and who can help open up the middle of the field because he's fast enough to be able to do this stuff. Again, this is a legitimate weapon in the offense. Legitimate weapon. Smith right here, another way this creates mismatches. The Patriots here are in a man coverage. You just get straight up man. This safety here is on Smith. He's responsible for Smith. And this is a nice way of using him in a really simple way that you don't have to feel like you have to have some sort of like football savant to unlock getting Smith open. This is just having him at first, block the edge rusher coming off, and so he's, this safety is responsible for Smith if he goes out for a pass. And when Smith does come off of this, he's going to run this kind of drag here. And you can see when Smith, again, he gets off of that really quick. Now the tackle can come over and he can block him. And Smith can do that, get off of the block, and then just use this speed. Again, the corner knows he doesn't have help to the outside, so he has to keep outside leverage. If he has any help, it's going to be to the inside. But Smith is too fast and also too strong, where even if he catches this at the 4.5 yard line, which he does, he's still able to turn up field and get that over the goal line for a touchdown. So, again, a really simple way of using him. It's not, again, this isn't some brilliant design. It's a nice design and well executed, but this isn't anything we haven't seen from any other team. This is just a guy who can chip and then go run to the middle, get open. Give your quarterback an easy outlet. That's exactly what happens. Because the Patriots are a man here, this safety has to keep outside leverage here. Whenever he starts running to that side, he's like, oh, crap, I got to go get him. And he's just not fast enough to go get there. This is not some slow moving tight end. This is probably one of the more athletic tight ends in the league. And it really goes to show here as well. Another wide alignment. And he's got Derek Stingley Jr. lined up on him. This is a corner. And this isn't just a corner. This is a really good man coverage corner. Really good. Smith is running a dig here, or a really deep dig. And already, again, this is against a corner here. Now, this isn't necessarily open, but pretty darn good route from a tight end against a really good coverage corner. Now, he improvises and gets to the outside and starts to run to the pylon here. And Tua sees him, and he's going to try to hit him there. And the size advantage then, this is what happens. Okay, so we are going to lose if we consistently put linebackers or even safeties on him. So let's put a corner on him. But then you have a size advantage. And so now Tua can just throw it up, and now, there's no chance Stingley can get up there. Even if there's not a whole bunch of separation, just throw it up, let him go make a play, and he can do that. Which is exactly what happens there, and it's a touchdown. I mean, this is what happens when you have this kind of a guy. This is why the Travis Kelce's and the Rob Gronkowski's, and I'm not trying to put Jonnu into that category, but when you have this type of a tight end, you have to know how to use him. And that's one situation where I'm like, I'm kind of wondering, all right, well, how is this going to work? Because you already have a good receiving tight end, Pat Freiermuth, but this opens things up. You can, like I said, if you're on schedule, you can afford to just pretty much live out of 12 personnel on first and second down. And then you can run the ball, you can throw it, you can do a whole bunch of quick game stuff, doesn't matter. I would not try to... Jonnu's not the best blocker, especially when it comes to run blocking. Like, if you're running straight up wide zone to his side, I would not do that very often. But this kind of stuff, using him out wide in the slot, in a number of ways, creating mismatches against the defense, he can do this, man. This is a legitimate threat, legitimate pass catcher. The Steelers have needed another guy who can be a threat, and Jonnu's a threat. There's no doubt about that. So I'm curious to see how it's going to fit, but this is some of the ways the Dolphins used him last year, and he earned everything that he got last year. Jonnu did. So anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate you guys tuning into this. We'll see you later.